Her husband's cold hand slapped her face so hard, she tasted blood. Grace stumbled back, her heart racing, as the man she loved for 10 years screamed, "You're nothing without me." In their shiny Lagos mansion, with its tall glass walls and marble floors, Grace felt smaller than a grain of sand. She was the wife of a billionaire, but her life was a cage. And then one quiet morning, a simple driver named Daniel changed everything. But what happened next? Oh, you won't believe it. Stick with me, because this story will break your heart and lift it up again. Grace lived in a world of gold and lies. Her husband, James, owned half the city, big hotels, oil companies, even a private jet. Everyone envied her. "Grace, you're so lucky," they'd say at fancy parties, where she wore dresses that cost more than a car. But nobody saw the truth. At home, James was a storm. He shouted at her, called her useless, and sometimes when he drank too much, his hands turned cruel. Grace hid her bruises with makeup and smiled for the cameras. She was trapped, like a bird in a shiny cage. One day, after James yelled at her for forgetting to plan a dinner party, Grace ran to the garden behind their mansion. She sat under a mango tree, tears falling like rain. "Why is my life like this?" she whispered. That's when she heard a soft voice. "Ma, are you okay?" She looked up, and there was Daniel, the new driver. He was young, maybe 25, with kind eyes and a shy smile. His shirt was plain, his hands rough from work, but his voice was warm, like a sunny day. Grace wiped her face quickly. "I'm fine," she lied. But Daniel didn't leave. He sat on the grass, not too close, and said, "When I'm sad, I talk to the trees. They listen." Grace laughed, a small, shaky sound. "Trees don't talk," she said. Daniel grinned. "Maybe not, but they don't judge either." For the first time in years, Grace felt seen. Not as a billionaire's wife, but as a person. Days turned into weeks, and Grace started noticing Daniel more. He drove her to the market, to her charity events, to her friend's house. In the car they talked. Simple things at first: music, food, the crazy Lagos traffic. Daniel told her stories about his village, where he grew up fetching water from a stream and dreaming of a better life. "I want to build a school one day," he said, his eyes shining. "For kids like me, who have nothing." Grace listened, her heart stirring. James never talked like this. James only cared about money. One evening, stuck in traffic under the bright city lights, Grace felt bold. "Daniel, why are you so kind to me?" she asked. He looked at her in the rearview mirror, his face serious. "Because you're kind too, Ma. I see it in how you talk to people, how you help at the orphanage. You're not like him." Grace's cheeks burned. Nobody ever called her kind. Nobody ever saw her. That night, she couldn't sleep. Daniel's words danced in her mind. She thought of his laugh, his gentle way, the way he made her feel safe. "No," she told herself. "He's just a driver. I'm married." But her heart didn't listen. Every time she saw Daniel, her stomach fluttered, like a butterfly waking up. She started finding reasons to ride in the car, to talk to him, to hear his voice. And Daniel? He never crossed a line, but his eyes said things his mouth didn't. One sunny afternoon, Grace asked Daniel to drive her to the beach. She didn't need to go there, but she wanted to be near him, away from the mansion's cold walls. They parked by the ocean, the waves crashing loud and wild. Grace stepped out, her sandals sinking into the sand. "Walk with me," she said. Daniel hesitated. "Ma, it's not proper." But she smiled. "Please." So he did. They walked side by side, the sea breeze tugging at Grace's hair. She felt free, like a girl again, not a billionaire's wife. Daniel, she said, stopping to face him. When I'm with you, I'm happy. I haven't been happy in so long. His eyes widened, and for a moment, he looked scared. Ma, you can't say that, he whispered. But Grace stepped closer. I mean it. Her heart pounded. She was crossing a line, and she didn't care. Daniel looked away, at the ocean, then back at her. Grace, he said, using her name for the first time. You don't know me. Not really. His voice was heavy, like he carried a secret. Grace frowned. What do you mean? But before he could answer, her phone rang. It was James. Where are you? He barked. Get home now. Grace's heart sank. The dream was over. She nodded at Daniel, and they drove back in silence. At home, James was waiting. His eyes were red, his voice sharp. Who were you with? He shouted. Grace froze. Just the driver, she said. James laughed, a mean sound. You think I don't see? You think I'm stupid? He grabbed her arm, hard. Grace cried out, but he didn't stop. You're mine, Grace. Don't forget that. She pulled away, tears burning her eyes, and ran to her room. Her heart screamed one name, Daniel. The next day, Grace felt like a ghost. She moved through the mansion, quiet and afraid. But when she saw Daniel in the garage, polishing the car, something inside her broke free. I need to talk to you, she said. He looked up, his face worried. Ma, it's not safe. But she shook her head. I don't care. I think I love you. The words spilled out, raw and true. Daniel's jaw dropped. He stepped back, like her words were fire. Grace, stop, he said. You don't understand. Understand what? She begged. Her voice cracked, her heart open wide. Daniel looked around, like someone might be watching. Then he leaned close and whispered, I'm not who you think I am. Grace's blood turned cold. What? She asked, her voice small. Daniel's eyes were dark with pain. I can't tell you. Not yet. But if you trust me, wait. Please. Grace stared at him, her mind spinning. Was he lying? Was he playing her? Or was there something bigger, something she couldn't see? Before she could ask more, the garage door slammed open. James stood there, his face twisted with rage. So it's true, he growled. In his hand was a phone, and on the screen was a photo, Grace and Daniel at the beach, standing too close. Grace's heart stopped. Someone had been watching. Someone had told. You're finished, Grace, James said, his voice like a knife. And you, he pointed at Daniel, you're dead. Grace's heart stopped as James stood in the garage, his eyes burning with hate. The phone in his hand showed a photo of her and Daniel at the beach, standing too close, her smile too bright. You're finished, Grace, James said, his voice sharp like a blade. And you, he glared at Daniel, you're dead. Grace wanted to scream, to run, but her feet felt stuck to the floor. Who took that photo? How did James know? And what did Daniel mean when he said, I'm not who you think I am? The air in the garage was thick, like a storm waiting to break. Daniel stepped forward, his face calm but his eyes fierce. Sir, leave her alone, he said. James laughed, a cold, ugly sound. You a driver, telling me what to do? You're nothing. He raised his hand to hit Daniel, but Grace shouted, Stop. Her voice shook, but it was loud. James froze, surprised. For the first time, Grace wasn't backing down. Don't touch him, she said, stepping between them. James's face twisted. You love him, don't you? He spat. Grace didn't answer, but her silence said everything. James shoved the phone in her face. "Look at this. Someone sent it to me. You thought you could hide." Grace stared at the photo, her stomach turning. It was her and Daniel, laughing by the ocean. But who was watching? She looked at Daniel, begging for answers. His jaw was tight, his eyes full of pain. "Grace," he whispered, "I tried to warn you." Before she could ask what, James grabbed her arm and pulled her toward the house. "You're coming with me," he growled. Grace cried out, but Daniel didn't move. He just watched, his hands clenched, like he was fighting a war inside himself. Inside the mansion, James locked Grace in their bedroom. The room was huge, with a bed bigger than a car and curtains that touched the ceiling, but it felt like a prison. James paced, his voice low and mean. "You shamed me, Grace. Me, the king of this city. You'll pay for this." Grace sat on the bed, her heart racing. "I didn't do anything wrong," she said, but her voice was small. James smirked. "Oh, you will. And your driver? He's gone. I'll make sure he never works again." He stormed out, slamming the door. Grace heard the lock click, and tears fell down her face. She felt alone, but one thought kept her strong: Daniel. Outside, the city hummed with life, cars honking, street sellers shouting, music blasting from shops. But in the mansion, time crawled. Grace sat by the window, watching the sun sink low. She thought of Daniel's kind eyes, his stories about his village, his dream to build a school. Was it all a lie? Was he really just a driver, or was there more? Her heart ached with questions. She trusted him, but his words, "I'm not who you think I am," stung like a thorn. That night, Grace heard a soft knock on the window. She jumped, her heart pounding. The room was dark, the city lights twinkling outside. She crept to the window and saw a shadow. "Grace," a voice whispered. It was Daniel. Her hands shook as she opened the window. "What are you doing here?" she hissed. "James will kill you." Daniel climbed inside, his face serious. "I had to come. You're not safe." Grace stared at him, torn between fear and hope. "Who are you, Daniel? Tell me the truth." Daniel took a deep breath, like he was carrying a heavy load. "Grace, I'm not just a driver. My real name is David, and I'm your brother's friend." Grace's eyes widened. "My brother," she whispered. She hadn't seen her brother, Paul, in years. He left home when she married James, angry that she chose a rich man over family. "Paul sent me, Daniel," David said. "He heard James was hurting you. He asked me to get close, to watch you, to help you escape." Grace's head spun. "Escape?" she asked. David nodded. "Your brother loves you. He's been planning this for months." Grace's heart broke and soared at the same time. Her brother still cared. But then she looked at David, and her stomach twisted. "So, you lied to me? All those talks, all those moments, were they fake?" Her voice cracked, tears burning her eyes. David's face softened. "No, Grace. I swear, my feelings for you are real. I didn't plan to fall in love. It just happened." He reached for her hand, but she pulled away. "You used me," she said, her voice sharp. David shook his head. "I wanted to tell you, but it wasn't safe. James has spies everywhere." Grace's mind raced. "Spies? That's who took the photo." But before she could ask, a loud bang came from downstairs. Footsteps thundered up the stairs. "Hide," Grace whispered. David ducked behind the curtains just as the door flew open. James stood there, his eyes wild. In his hand was a shiny black gun. Grace's blood turned cold. You thought you could fool me? James shouted. I know he's here. Grace's heart pounded. Who? She lied, her voice shaking. James stepped closer, the gun glinting in the moonlight. Your driver. My men saw him climb the wall. Grace's eyes flicked to the curtains. She had to protect David. You're wrong, she said, standing tall. He's gone. James laughed, a cruel sound. You're lying. But it doesn't matter. You're both finished. He raised the gun, and Grace's life flashed before her eyes, her childhood, her dreams, her love for David. She thought of her brother, waiting somewhere, hoping she'd be free. She couldn't give up now. James, please, she said, her voice steady. Put the gun down. Let's talk. James's eyes narrowed, but he didn't shoot. Talk? He mocked. You betrayed me. Grace took a step forward, her heart racing. I stayed with you for years, even when you hurt me. I was loyal. But you broke me, James. Her words hit him like a slap. For a moment, he looked confused, like a boy caught doing wrong. Grace saw her chance. You're better than this, she lied, her voice soft. Put it down. James's hand shook, but before he could decide, David burst from the curtains. Drop it, he shouted, tackling James. The gun fell, sliding across the floor. Grace screamed as the two men fought, fists flying. James was bigger, but David was fast. They crashed into the bed, then the wall, grunting and shouting. Grace ran for the gun, her hands trembling. She picked it up, heavy and cold, and pointed it at James. Stop, she yelled. Both men froze, staring at her. James's face was bloody, his eyes wide. Grace, you won't shoot, he said, but his voice shook. Grace's hands trembled, tears streaming down her face. I don't want to, she said, but I'm done being your prisoner. David stood panting, his eyes locked on her. Grace, you don't have to do this, he said. But Grace's heart was on fire. She was tired of fear, tired of pain. She wanted freedom. Then, a new voice cut through the room. Grace. It was Paul, her brother, standing at the door with two men in police uniforms. Grace's jaw dropped. Paul? She whispered. He ran to her, his face full of love. I'm here, sis. You're safe now. The police grabbed James, pulling his arms behind his back. You're under arrest, one said, for abuse and threats. James shouted, cursing, but they dragged him away. Grace dropped the gun, her legs weak. Paul caught her, hugging her tight. I'm sorry I left you, he said. I'll never leave again. Grace cried, her heart full and broken. She looked at David, who stood quietly, his face bruised. Thank you, she said, but her voice was cold. He nodded, his eyes sad. I'm sorry I lied, Grace. I love you. Grace wanted to believe him, but her heart was too raw. I need time, she said. David nodded and walked away, his shoulders heavy. Months later, Grace stood outside a small school in a quiet part of the city. The sign read, Grace's Hope Academy. She smiled, her heart lighter than it had been in years. Paul was beside her, helping her start this school for kids who had nothing, just like David once dreamed. James was in jail, his empire crumbling. Grace was free, but her heart still carried a scar. She thought of David every day, his laugh, his lies, his love. She hadn't seen him since that night, but Paul said he was back in his village, helping his people. One day, a letter came. It was from David. Grace, it read, I'll always love you. I'm proud of your school. Keep shining. A photo fell out, A picture of David with kids in his village, smiling under a mango tree. Grace's eyes filled with tears. She forgave him, but she wasn't ready to love again. Not yet. She tucked the letter in her pocket and walked into her school, where kids laughed and played. She was free, and that was enough. And so, friends, Grace learned a hard lesson. Trust is a treasure, but pride can blind you. James's pride destroyed him. David's pride hid the truth. But Grace? She found her strength, her freedom, and her heart. What would you do if you were Grace? Would you forgive David? Would you love again? Tell me below, and share this story with someone who needs to hear it. Until next time, keep your heart open, but guard it well.